Hello and happy Friday everyone. I hope you all had a lovely week, and regardless of whether or not you did, we are here today to relax and enjoy some cozy fall vibes. So today we're going to be trying out the Fabriano hot press watercolor paper with our go-to subject for trying out new things, Pokemon. So let's get started. Alright, so this time the video is a bit longer because I actually included the sketching process this time. I definitely think that doing those sketchbook spread videos has helped me get more comfortable laying down sketches on camera. Full disclosure though, I did do thumbnails off camera, but at least we're making progress here as far as me getting my entire creative process out there. Usually I'll also avoid doing my sketches directly on watercolor paper. If you see my other videos, you might remember that I typically scan my sketches and then print them on watercolor paper, but this time I just felt like sketching directly on the paper for some reason. Thankfully, I did not end up regretting this, as this paper is incredibly forgiving when it comes to pencil. It doesn't seem to be the kind of paper that likes to really hang on to every pencil mark you make, which was a big relief because I just dove right in there. But yes, I wanted to do some simple illustrations to try and test this paper out, so I chose one Pokemon that was requested and 3 that I just felt like drawing. My nephew asked me to draw Rowlet sometime, so that's the first thing I went for, and it ended up setting up the vibe for the rest of the drawings. The other 3 Pokemon I chose were Vulpix, Leafeon, and Tepig. Even though I did a thumbnail for this Rowlet before I sketched it, I wasn't super sure what to do with the background aside from the nest it's sitting in, but I ended up going with a bunch of assorted decorative leaves just to put something there fall related. Next, we have Leafeon. I've always seen the evolutions as being canines with just a little bit of weasel mixed in there. At least that's how I preferred to draw them before in my semi-realistic style, but here I felt like a cat-like pose would best fit the vibe I was going for. As you'll see later when we get into the coloring stage, since this is a fall themed series of illustrations, I opted to trade out Leafeon's normal green accents for yellow and orange. For these drawings, I also wanted to kind of give the idea that these Pokemon are someone's pets and not actual fighting Pokemon, and I think this Leafeon is the best embodiment of that sentiment. I've always loved seeing Pokemon shown in more domestic situations. It just makes them seem more relatable and realistic to me, and I think if these guys were real, I'd definitely be more inclined to keep mine out hanging out with me instead of sequestered in a Pokeball where I can't pet them. Here we have Tepig. When I was scrolling through the list of Pokemon looking for which ones I wanted to draw, the moment I laid eyes on Tepig, I instantly thought of pigs hunting for truffles. Granted, the mushrooms I chose to draw here are not truffles because if you've ever seen a truffle, they don't look very much like mushrooms. They look like poop, just to be real here. And I didn't want anyone getting the wrong idea, so we're just going to pretend that these mushrooms are meant to represent truffles. I felt like doing something with mushrooms was fitting with the fall theme as well, because if any of y'all are playing Animal Crossing right now, you know what's up. It's mushroom season. So yeah, Tepig stumbling across some delectable mushrooms is the story for this drawing. For our last Pokemon, here's Vulpix. This was mostly a white space filler, and it's the only drawing I didn't do a background for, so this is just a very small, very simple doodle. With Vulpix being a fire type, I wasn't sure if it'd do well in the cold. On the one hand, it could probably provide its own heat and might actually enjoy the cold, but on the other, it might not. I don't know, and I thought the owner of this Vulpix might not know either, and thus they opted to give their Vulpix a scarf, just in case. I don't know, what do you guys think? Would Vulpix dig the cold weather or not? As we're getting into the painting portion, I guess now's as good a time as any for paper talk. I've heard the FABRIANO brand thrown around quite a bit, and they seem to have a pretty good fan base, or user base I should say, I don't know. I saw this pad of 12 sheets for about $10 at Hobby Lobby the other week, and I kind of impulse bought it. I thought it might be fun to try another brand, and it's one of the few times I've actually even seen hot press paper in a physical store. So the paper I've been using prior to this was 100% cotton. This particular paper is only 25% cotton, and I've heard that the more cotton the better, so I was honestly a little skeptical going into this. I found that the paint seemed to want to sit on the paper surface a bit longer than what I've seen with other papers. It gives you more time to push the paint around, but if you're not careful, you can also end up with spots where the pigment has pulled up in the water, so if you're not quick to blend that out, it has the potential to get a bit blotchy as it dries. So that took a bit of getting used to, but it wasn't too much of an issue for me. A huge plus for this paper is that the water and pigment stays where you put it though. There wasn't really any bleeding that I noticed that wasn't caused by my own error. Also, lifting up mistakes and blending colors out was super easy since, like I said, the paint and the water does stay on the surface longer than other papers I've used, so you have more time to work with it. Miraculously, I did manage to avoid using a criminal amount of water for these illustrations, but I did use enough that the cheaper paper probably would have buckled quite a bit. This paper had very minimal buckling even though it was not taped down. I chose not to tape it because I wasn't sure where exactly I was going to place my sketches, and I know I have the tendency to draw too big, so I didn't want to risk parts of the sketches getting cut off by the tape. Overall, I really like this paper and I'm looking forward to playing with it some more, although probably sparingly as it is quite pricey. Like I said, $10 for only 12 sheets. I think in the future I'll save this for more polished pieces, but at any rate, I had a good time doing this initial test to try and learn the pros and cons of this brand. So normally I'd usually be complaining right about now about not being able to get the color saturated enough. For this set of illustrations though, I was going for a softer, more pastel look, so that wasn't a problem this time. I used mostly my Castle Art watercolors for this, at least I think that's what they're called. I'll have them linked in the description below if you'd like to see for sure what they're called, but yeah, they are very cheap watercolors and they aren't heavily pigmented at all, so that worked out really well for me this time. I really love the soft look on Vulpix in particular. There's just something very wintry about it that I like even though this is a fall themed collection. For the puff of breath, I did use my Prima watercolor confection set, as the blue there was more vibrant and less chalky than what I had in my castle set. Like I said before, this is just a very simple illustration, but I still love it. Vulpix came out so cute, at least in my opinion, and the temptation is real to spruce this up in Photoshop and turn it into a sticker. On to the Leafeon. For this one, I used the same body color that I had used for Rowlet. In fact, I ended up using a lot of the colors for the Rowlet throughout all of the illustrations. For one thing, because it helped them all look cohesive, and for another, I just really liked the palette. I tried to keep the soft pastel vibe for the majority of the Leafeon as well. However, when it came to its colorful body accents, I really wanted those to pop, so I incorporated some more pigment-heavy colors I had, including some of the colors from my Prima set. I love how the color shifts came out on the Leafeon and how the oranges ended up looking with the pinkish purple I used for shading. And lastly, here's our Tepig. Now admittedly I was getting a bit tired at this point, but I tried not to get lazy and let it show, and I think it still turned out cute. I had to jump around some more on this piece than I did on the others because that dark color on the Tepig, if that had bled into another part of the piece, it would have been a huge pain to fix since everything around it is so light, so I'm really glad I managed to avoid that. This is the only piece that really gave me any trouble with the streakiness that I mentioned earlier, especially where the black is concerned. However, this particular paint was one that I've reactivated and let dry a million times over the past couple of months, and it had gotten a bit chalky, so I think this was more of a paint thing than a paper thing. I also mucked up on the left-hand bush a bit by adding too much water and pigment. I don't know what the deal is with me and bushes, you guys. Between this and the hard time that one bush gave me in the Pumpkin Thief piece, I'm thinking maybe I need to do a full-on watercolor study sesh on bushes? I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to keep the background for this as simple as I could to fit in with the rest of the illustrations. And like with the Vulpix, it's not extravagant, but I like it. Definitely wanting to attempt more detailed watercolor scenery though, so you might see that in a future video. We'll see. for the finishing touches, I went in with my colored pencils to reinforce the lines and shading and to fill in the little white spaces around where the paint had dried. The pencils went onto this paper butter smooth, which I had no doubts about after feeling the texture of this paper. I tried to be really careful to not go too dark and saturated with the colored pencil since I wanted to maintain the light look, as I said before. I'm pretty confident that I managed to achieve that, and the pencils were more of a nice little accent than something that I felt had to carry the pieces. I have to admit it was really nice working on these simpler watercolor pieces after the semi-realistic, more complex pieces I had done for the Drawtober prompts. To be honest, I've kind of needed a break from watercolor after that, and this was the perfect way to ease my way back into working with them. That being said, and kind of getting off the subject of these illustrations, I have been feeling the need to inject more variety into this channel lately though, so I'm probably going to be bouncing around mediums more often in the future. I've been getting a hankering for doing some more detailed digital work as well and showing my creative process for digital character designs, which I think is kind of unconventional. I don't know, it might be neat to show. I don't know, it's hard to explain, so I'm gonna have to show you guys what I mean someday, but it's basically a very long and drawn out process of painting a full-fledged design from what's essentially a scribble. The dragon that's in the channel banner is an example of that process, and I've done a couple other designs that I really loved using the scribble to painting method, so yeah, I really want to show you guys how I do that really soon. So I guess I'm telling you this just as a heads up that I'm most likely going to break out of the norm for the channel for a little bit, and yeah, I just hope you guys will enjoy it and stick with me for it. And that's it for this week. I hope you all enjoyed watching the process for these fall-themed Pokemon doodles, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great weekend everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.